Before we begin, I just want to say hi to all the new folks. My last video somehow made it to 10,000 eyeballs, which frankly is probably more people than I've ever made eye contact with. I'm used to a solid 10 views, half of which are probably from my wife. So if you're new here, welcome. If you've been here, welcome back. And if you commented or yelled about a game I need to play, I really appreciate it. It's been really fun talking to other folks who love this genre as much as I do. And now I have even more must plays on my docket. So thank you. It's taken me a little while to get back, but we're back. And by back, I mean I've returned to my natural habitat, a chair that hurts my lower spine, and a digital storefront designed to harvest my impulses. Tonight, I'm showing you three little oddballs, three point-and-click adventure games that feel like they were discovered in a thrift store paperback section in a shoebox behind the romance novels labeled Do Not Open. These are not normal games. These are games where you click on a potato and the potato gives you lore. Games where inventory is a concept. Games where the main character looks like a forlorn little chimney sweep, but somehow changes the way you view time and space and the universe. And I need you to understand, I'm not recommending these because they're the best games ever. I'm recommending them because they're specific. They're 100% handmade little weirdos. And in 2026, when everything is an algorithm and a brand statement, sometimes you just want something a little more chaotic, or at least irreverent. So welcome. Get comfortable, hydrate. If you experience confusion, that is intended. If you experience enlightenment, that is a bug. Let's start off with Four Last Things, a point-and-click adventure where art history, theology, and slapstick comedy meet in an unholy alliance to interrogate the very nature of sin, redemption, and the limits of ecclesiastical patience. If you've ever found yourself in a Western Civ class, secretly wishing the syllabus included more pratfalls and fewer popes, this one's for you. Four Last Things is the fever dream of solo developer Joe Richardson, who, presumably after being left alone in a museum several nights in a row with a faulty carbon monoxide detector, decided to build an entire point-and-click adventure game out of digitized Renaissance paintings and public domain classical music. Imagine Monty Python doing Leisure Suit Larry on a shoestring budget, but with more questionable nudity and 200% more religion. Premise and plot. You play as an unnamed traveler, a short, sprightly, confused everyman who has, through a series of poor decisions, managed to commit every single one of the 7 deadly sins before the game's opening credits. That's what I call time management. Hoping to escape eternal damnation, you do what any upstanding medieval citizen would do. You march yourself into town and request forgiveness from the local church. But bureaucracy, that eternal antagonist, rears its Latin-speaking, vaguely judgmental head. The priest, in his infinite compassion, informs you that you have sinned, but unfortunately you committed your sins outside the parish boundaries, and thus absolution is out of their jurisdiction. In the world of Four Last Things, the only thing more convoluted than salvation is paperwork. But in a move that feels equal parts Kafka and Catholic guilt trip, there's a loophole. If you simply commit all those sins again, but this time within the correct geographical district, then forgiveness can be dispensed post-haste. If this sounds less like the New Testament and more like DMV logic, you're getting it. It's amazing what can slip through due to a little clerical oversight. Get it? Because clerical oversight. Anyway. So off you go on a slapstick sinning scavenger hunt, lying, cheating, stealing, lusting, gluttonizing, envying, and generally making a mess of things. All in the name of procedural correctness and spiritual cleanup. Art and music. Let's talk about the art. Every asset in Four Last Things is cut, collaged, and animated from real Renaissance paintings. Think Bruegel, Bosch, and Friends. But instead of being left to gather dust in some echoing marble-floored gallery, these works are joyfully desecrated, sketched, spun, and juxtaposed into new, surreal tableaus. Backgrounds are luminous, faces are plucked from altarpieces and stuck on peasant bodies like a theological Mr. Potato Head. The game is an animated collage, a mashup that's more loving than mocking, more joyful than sacrilegious. It's a little like being given a backstage pass to the museum and being told, make yourself at home, here's some glue. The soundtrack is pure classical public domain. Bach, Beethoven, Monteverdi, all were purposed to underscore absurd scenes, bouts of drunkenness, and ecclesiastical dance parties. The juxtaposition of angelic choruses with pixelated, pissing peasants is, honestly, chef's kiss. Mechanics and tone. Mechanically, it's classic point and click. You'll poke around town collecting items, often with questionable provenience, combining objects, solving inventory puzzles, and hunting for the next sin to check off your to-do list. Some solutions are clever, some are gloriously dumb, and nearly all are marinated in absurdity. You'll eavesdrop on peasants, engage in the world's least dignified pieing contest, participate in theological debates, and unleash the kind of slapstick chaos that would get you excommunicated in any real parish. The dialogue is dry, acerbic, and sometimes self-aware to the point of spiritual crisis. There's definitely that Monty Python energy throughout. A sort of Holy Grail meets Monkey Island humor where every authority figure is a little bit useless and every solution feels like a cosmic joke. What makes it a wonderful weirdo? Four Last Things is a wonderful weirdo because it manages to be both a love letter to and a parody of European art and medieval morality. It's the kind of game that could have only been made by someone who's read both the Divine Comedy and Discworld and taken both a little too seriously. There's earnest affection here from the source material, but also a subversive impulse to tear it all up and play with the pieces. There's real delight in the friction between the sublime, saints, angels, Madonnas, and the ridiculous. Bad jokes, nudist peasants, theological loopholes. It makes you feel for a moment like you're in some cosmic joke. A joke that's persisted since the Middle Ages and is still funny today. What I think it does right? The art and animation are generally inventive. Every screen is a Where's Waldo of hidden gags and references. The puzzles, while mostly straightforward, are funny and rewarding. The tone manages to be irreverent without being mean-spirited. It's clear the dev is in love with this material, even while lampooning it. It's short, sweet, and doesn't overstay its welcome. You could finish it in an afternoon and still have time to repent for laughing at medieval nudes. What maybe it does wrong? If you're looking for a brain-busting adventure or want your art history lessons to have meant something, this game isn't for you. Occasionally, puzzle logic can be as Byzantine as a cathedral floor plan. It's brief. Think museum day trip, not semester abroad. But those quibbles feel beside the point. Four Last Things is a singular creation, a loving, irreverent Renaissance fever dream. It's a pointed reminder that art is for the living, and that the best way to understand the sublime is by poking a little fun at it. And, most importantly, that all sins should be locally sourced. And if you find yourself unrepentantly charmed by Four Last Things and crave yet more papal mischief, you could always check out The Procession of the Calvary, its spiritual sequel. Same fever dream, slightly more swordplay. But for now, let's move on to a different kind of pilgrimage. We're shifting gears, though apparently not centuries. Pilgrims, by Amanita Design, feels like the collective daydream of medieval innkeepers after a few too many pints of honeyed wine. If Four Last Things is the unruly art history student, Pilgrims is the folklore-obsessed cousin who insists every story is improved by the addition of a fire-breathing chicken. Art, atmosphere, and thingamajig whimsy. First, the art style. Imagine the Bayeux Tapestry got bored with war and stitched itself into a deck of cards. Collage with old folklore illustrations, napkin doodles, and the sort of marginalia drawn by people trapped in endless feudal staff meetings. Every scene is expressive and scrappy. Characters squish and emote like Czech marionettes who just discovered slapstick. And the backgrounds look like something you half remember from a childhood daydream. There's a lived-in quality here. Nothing too polished. Everything is warm, cozy, and weird. For me, it instantly evoked a memory I didn't even know I possessed. The Thingamajig Book of Manners, those delightfully grotesque creatures misbehaving their way through childhood etiquette. Pilgrims' casts are, in my mind, thingamajigs with regional accents and a fondness for chaos. Watching them behave badly is not only comforting, it's kind of the point. Premise: folk fables and potato logic. The setup is as simple as a medieval parable, and roughly as logical. You are a nameless tramp, and your primary motivation is to secure a boat ride. Why? Don't ask. The journey, like the best fables, is just an excuse to gather an ever-expanding crew of oddballs. A bandit, a devil, a bear, a princess, and most importantly, Granny. I hadn't meant to do a character shout-out, but I have to shout out Granny. She is a domestic disturber, justice with a broom and a flask. Evicted from her own house, does she despair? No. She pours herself a stiff one, swings her broom like she's auditioning for a folk punk cover band, and sets out to reclaim her property from the world's cheekiest squatter. Her approach to life is aspirational. Handle your problems directly, and keep the local bar in business while you're at it. Card mechanics. Chaos, but make it charming. Pilgrims is a playable deck of possibilities. Every character and item is a card in your inventory, and therefore a hand that you can shuffle, experiment with, and deploy onto any scene. Do you want to see what happens if you give the devil an accordion? Should you try to use the bandit to scare off the bear? Does Granny, left to her own devices, attempt to solve every puzzle with her broom? Half the fun is seeing what happens, because Amanita has hardwired charm and surprise into every outcome. There are dozens of solutions. Some logical, most gleefully chaotic. Many result in failures that are more rewarding and entertaining than success. But here's the genius. Pilgrims is built for experimentation, not perfection. Puzzles have multiple solutions, and there are enough secret moments, narrative detours, and oddball achievements to fill an entire afternoon. The game gently nudges you to replay, to push the world's boundaries, and to see if a chicken really can solve everything. Tone and texture. Folk art absurdity served hot. Tonally, Pilgrims is sly and earthy. Impish humor, gentle affection for the rustic and odd. It's like a folk art puppet show hosted by Jean Venkmeyer and narrated by the Brothers Grimm. Dialogue is almost wordless, relying on pantomime, pictographs, and music. Playful clarinets, accordion riffs, and the sound of a village festival winding down at 3 a.m. There's no real voice acting, but every grunt, gesture, and animated mishap feels precise. So what makes Pilgrims a wonderful weirdo? It's not just the style or the fail better logic, it's the commitment to possibility. Every playthrough is different, and not just because you missed an item, but because the game wants you to discover new outcomes, delighting in showing what you couldn't predict. Pilgrims is about the joy of poking the universe to see what wiggles. It's short, most can probably finish in under an hour, but stuffed with enough branching secrets and what-if moments to demand at least a second and third and possibly fourth go-around. What maybe it does wrong? If you like your stories straight and your puzzles solved in the first try, this might not be your boat ride. If you need traditional adventure logic, you may find yourself muttering at the screen. But for everyone else, a fable with extra room for improv and the rare type of point and click that makes you want to hand the mouse to a friend just to watch them break the puzzle differently. Pilgrims is a warm, weird, pocket-sized adventure about possibilities, potatoes, and the most charming rogues east of Prague. Try everything, play it again, give the devil a rope, just to see what happens. And remember, in Pilgrims, the journey is the puzzle. The longing. If Four Last Things is slapstick heresy on canvas, and Pilgrims is a bedtime story told by a slightly unhinged grandparent, then The Longing is what you get when you cross Kafka, a forgotten Tamagotchi, and the existential dread of a gap year that never ends. You are the Shade. You serve a king. Your king has gone to sleep. He will wake in 400 days. Your task is to wait. Not fight, not solve, not save. Wait, which is usually the moment you realize this is either going to be profoundly moving or profoundly committed to a bit. Naturally, the first question everyone asks is, how long does it take to beat? And the answer is somewhere around 400 days. Yes, it can take 400 real-world days, the kind that include traffic, dishes, and the vague suspicion you left your oven on. If you install the game, meet the Shade, and then abandon them like a polite ghost, the clock still runs. The game honors your absence with the same sincerity it honors your attention, which is either comforting or deeply unsettling depending on how you feel about responsibility. Most players don't actually wait all 400 days though, because quietly, subtly, almost shyly, the game lets you influence time. Reading speeds it, decorating helps, exploring nudges it along. Not dramatically, just enough that it feels less like you're measuring time and more like you're negotiating with it. So a full playthrough might take 20 actual hours scattered across weeks or months. Not because the game demands it, because the game suggests it. And that distinction matters. The shade walks slowly, so slowly. Not clumsily slow, not technically slow, intentionally slow. Like each step is being submitted for a philosophical review. At first, it feels really strange, even maddening, then deliberate, then inevitable. Because when movement takes time, distance starts to matter. And when distance matters, space becomes noticeable. And when space becomes noticeable, the world stops feeling like a level and starts feeling like a place. You're not navigating terrain, you're navigating stillness. The underground kingdom is enormous. Tunnels, chambers, abandoned halls, forgotten architecture, rooms that look like they once hosted something profoundly important and now host dust with excellent posture. Some spaces feel grand, some feel claustrophobic, some peaceful, some feel like they're quietly judging you. It has the emotional geography of ruins, the sense that something meaningful used to happen here and now doesn't. Not dramatically, just gradually. And because you move so slowly, you don't pass through the atmosphere. You live in it. You become a part of it. The shade, thankfully, is not silent. They narrate their thoughts in soft, dry observations, admiring something beautiful, then gently questioning whether it matters. They attempt optimism the same way someone attempts to fold a fitted sheet, sincerely, but with visible doubt. They exist in a constant emotional rotation between faint hope, mild misery, cautious curiosity, and administrative disappointment, sometimes all at once. Which brings us to one of the game's most greatest inventions, the list of disappointments. Whenever something doesn't work out, the shade logs it. Not failures, per se, but just disappointments. Didn't reach a ledge? Logged. Expected something exciting? Logged. Thought this would help? Logged. The tone isn't dramatic, it's procedural. Like the universe issued a form and the shade is determined to file it correctly. And slowly, something strange happens. You start to like the list. Or at least I did. Because every disappointment means you tried something. Every entry is proof you existed in the space. Every note is a tiny receipt that says you were here. It turns out disappointment, when cataloged correctly, starts to resemble progress. For a game about waiting, the longing is surprisingly full of small joys. You can decorate your cave, not for upgrades or points, but just because it feels nice. You can build a fire, collect furniture, grow moss, plant mushrooms, draw pictures, play instruments, badly. Read entire books line by line, including full texts like Moby Dick. And as you read, time passes faster. Which means literature is mechanically advantageous. Speedrunners take notes. The shade notices these things, comments on them, takes pride in them, appreciates the coziness. It's the emotional equivalent of making yourself tea on a difficult day. Modest but helpful. And it's actually really funny. Not like slapstick funny, but observationally funny. Interact with a fountain and the shade might say, "The sound is so soothing," then moments later admit that it's unbearable. They don't spiral dramatically, they spiral politely. It's less existential crisis and more existential customer service ticket. At some point you stop playing the longing like a game, and you start treating it like a place. You check in on the shade. You wonder how they're doing. You decorate their room because it feels unfair not to. You set them walking somewhere before you go make coffee. And the game never really asks you to care. It simply notices when you do. That's why some people call this the perfect game. Not because it does everything, not because it does everything right, but because it does one thing completely. Every mechanic, every silence, every delay serves the same purpose. Making waiting feel real. Nothing contradicts that idea. Nothing distracts from it. Nothing exists because games usually have this. It's a complete system built around a single emotional premise. Of course, not everyone sticks with it. Not because it's bad, but because it's honest. If you want urgency, it offers patience. If you want stimulation, it offers quiet. If you want direction, it offers possibility. Depending on the day you're having, that's either a gift or a personal attack. So, what is the longing, really? It isn't about finishing, it's about accompanying. It's about sitting with something long enough that it stops feeling empty and starts feeling meaningful. It's about realizing that waiting isn't blank time. Waiting is full time. And that's why the longing is a wonderful weirdo, because it doesn't try to entertain you. It just asks you to stay with it. And honestly, I think that's really endearing. Okay, confession. Originally, this video was going to be 15 little weirdos. That was the plan. 15 strange point and clicks. 15 digital oddities. 15 tiny interactive creatures I found scuttling around the corners of Steam like emotional hermit crabs. But then something happened. I started sorting them. Not alphabetically, not by release date, not by Metacritic score, but by vibe. And this is where my archaeologist brain betrayed me. Because once you're trained to classify things, you stop seeing individual objects and start seeing assemblages. Patterns, contexts, shared environments. And suddenly these weren't just weird games. They were artifacts from the same worlds. Four Last Things, Pilgrims, The Longing, different studios, slightly different mechanics, different countries, and yet they feel like they're in the same universe and maybe time period. Like, if you were to walk through one, you might accidentally wander into the next. Like, somewhere just off screen, Granny is arguing with the Renaissance saint, while the Shade is quietly taking notes in his disappointment journal. Because they all run on the same internal physics. Curiosity instead of urgency, mood instead of momentum, observation instead of conquest, patience instead of pressure. They are slow when other games are rushed, specific when other games are broad, quiet when other games are desperate to be heard. That's why I didn't show you 15, because these don't feel like separate entries. They feel like fragments, pottery shards from the same cultural layer. Different shapes, same clay. I hope you enjoyed this video because, as I said, in the process of making it, I realized I've unintentionally sorted an entire taxonomy of strange little adventure games. The apocalyptic ones, the romantic ones, the ghost ones, the really, really old ones. So yes, this is happening again. Thanks again for watching and for all the support lately. It genuinely means a lot. And I'll catch you in the next one.